Welcome to ACN, the Liberation TV of Ambazonia.
My fellow Ambazonians, this is Dr. Cho Ayaba. Good morning, good afternoon to every one of you, wherever you may be. Let me send salutations to our prisoners of war and to thank them for sacrificing this high for the cause of our freedom, and to assure them that their sacrifices is being documented. The pain and injury inflicted on them will be accounted for by those who kidnapped and deprived them of their liberty. But the greatest honor will come from the Amazonian people, who will remember forever what they have gone through. I also want to thank our forces for the sleepless nights, for standing the post despite the odds. I want to thank you on behalf of the 8 million Amazonian people and on behalf of all freedom lovers across the globe for what you have to give for the ideal of freedom. Ambazonia will remember your sacrifices forever, and the children yet unborn will read about your prowess, what you did, how you threw out the enablers, once powerful men and women who now live in exile. Thank you very much. I also want to thank our people. It's been a harrowing 60 years and counting, living under La Republique. But it has been even more difficult in the past 6 years. But you have shown through your resilience, your compassion, your empathy, your sacrifices displayed on Mondays through collective resistance, that you want your homeland to be free. We've seen our mothers digging graves. We've seen the marvelous things that our people have done in supporting our forces. I ask you never to blink. I once said, if you look behind, you will see the bodies of all those they've murdered. If you look in front of you, you may see a wall as high as Mount Everest. You have two choices: to walk over those dead bodies, counting them as you go backward, with your head bowed in shame, walk back into the hands of slavery. Or you decide to become the Neil Armstrongs, the great mountaineers who, despite the odds, decided they were going to scale down the highest cliffs. They were going to overcome difficulties to beat heights. We are that generation that have refused to walk right back, counting over the dead bodies of our fallen heroes, our compatriots, counting the numbers, reading their names, with our heads bowed in shame, walking right back into the arms of the butchers of our people. I ask you to strengthen yourself up, to gather courage. As a people, we will scale down the Everest in front of us. And once we will be at the top, we will look back and we will say to ourselves, and all those who have died, we made it on all of us our behalf. Today I'm going to talk about a series of issues. One, I want to just let you know the Amazonian Defense Forces was invited by the United Nations for a 10-day conference on peace monitoring, negotiation, and peace building. We've completed the conference and completed the studies with a certification. You will get the details in the future. This is a good sign. On a daily basis, we scale little cliffs, we win little battles on behalf of our people. And you should remain brave. On the 11th of February, you stayed home. Our forces patrolled the streets and manned the post in rejection of the celebration of what La Republique calls the Youth Day in our land. A day they celebrate the triumph of tyranny over democracy. A day they celebrate the triumph of genocide over the respect for human dignity. We have in the past 6 years rejected tyrants from using our land where the brave are falling to celebrate days of shame. We have taken ownership of that day, and going forward we will decide how the 11th of February will be celebrated in our land. A month later, you saw the bravery of Amazonian women in the Momon military district. They came out and celebrated Women's Day in honor of the brave women who have been killed in our struggle, those whose liberty have been taken away, and the brave women in exile who are speaking on all of us our behalf. Going forward, we will decide how such days will be celebrated. We will take ownership of these days, and use these days to amplify the right of our people to live in peace and in a free homeland. A few days later, with our bravery, the support of our forces, and the rejection by our people, we stood against an illegal legitimation process called senatorial elections. And I'll use this opportunity to talk a bit about strategies and the importance of these things. We saw how they move exiled individuals, people who've been hiding within our communities, people who've been hiding in armored cars. We saw how they move them. La République moved about 1,000 forces into Momo, 1,000 more into Bui. They blocked major entrances within Mezam. They installed temporary outposts along the Bengui, the Bamenda-Bengui road. They undertook several military operations in Boyo. They amassed forces around Fako. As they were making these moves, we were watching. We took countermeasures. Within the Mogamo area, we realized they could not take the natural path that they have been taking before, because we have made it abundantly clear that dead bodies will be wasted. They sneaked in the middle of the night after walking for over 50 kilometers using several days. They took up position in the bushes. We monitored them all through. Even within this time, our women were able to come out to celebrate Women's Day through our protection. And we were able to make sure that all those they had ferried in to come and cast illegal ballot through an illegal process did not have it easy. But why does La République insist at such a high price financially to organize elections that have been rejected by the Amazonian people? Why do they insist in this charade, even though the Constitution of La République de Cameroon bestows every levels of power in the hands of Mr. Biya? He can appoint his senators. He can choose who parliamentarians are. He doesn't even need any law enacted by parliament. He can rule by decree and ordinances. Why does he insist in organizing these charades time and again? It has cost La République billions to mobilize the forces they did, to move the logistics they did, to protect the individuals that they wanted to use the media to showcase an illegal charade. They have spent a lot. And the reason why we sometimes block these things is also not only to stop legitimization, which I will explain later, but to make sure that the cost is so high that monies that La République should have invested in schools, in social services, in development projects, that it should transfer this money into an adventure it is bound to lose. And by neglecting the other services, we create the condition for an uprising. So why does La République insist on this charade? Given that their governors are military generals who can rule by executive fiat, that Mr. Biya is powerful enough to decree every law, yet they insist on carrying out an election in a land they don't control, in a land they don't own. Let me tell you why. And before I tell you why, let me explain something which I have explained in certain cycles and is related to the reasons I would be giving about elections. Ambazonia is a state. I hear people referring to our forces as non-state actors. They are state actors. We are a state. Let me restate it. We are a state. Ambazonian forces are state actors. We are not a recognized state. Yes, that is granted. So you can refer to our forces as non-recognized state actors. The assumption by the international system that a de facto occupation will become de jure because of longevity is flawed. And the perpetuation of this assumption as a way of determining policies, practices, is also flawed. That is why all attempts at negotiation has been botched because of these qualifications. And we have made it abundantly clear, if you continue to misrepresent who Ambazonians are, you are going to empower La Republique to take positions based on those assumptions. Ambazonia is a state with an international border demarcated as far back as 1919. And the agreement is an international treaty. You cannot make that state extinct based on dispossession. International law principle ut possidetis argues against. Once possessed cannot be dispossessed. So we are a state. We are the first state in the continent of Africa that established a pluralism in terms of democratic pluralism and transition from one political party in governance to the other through free and fair democratic elections. An established constitution that was the basis of the functionality of our government. And you cannot allow tongues of a pariah state to roll into our land and dispossess us of that land, and it becomes de jure under international law. So we are a state. Let me take you back to the issue why the enemy insists on an election and why anti-election strategy is part of the pillar of our liberation strategy. States derive legitimacy through two ways: within their own borders and in occupied territories. One is foundational. Foundational legitimacy is based on the ability of the state to provide security and guarantee the safety of the population. That is the basis of the establishment of the state over the nation. The state is a representation of the institutions, the laws, and whatever it uses in the process of governance. The primary responsibility of the state over a nation is to guarantee the safety and security of the people. And I'm not talking only about territorial security, human security. I'm talking about food security, environmental security, health security. And like we've heard several times in the United States, when the US has failed to protect its citizens, the government has been told, if this, and this is the basis of the foundation of the gun laws in the United States. because the forebearers of the US realize when the state fails in its primary obligation and becomes a tyranny against the people should have the means to rebel against that state. And without arms, they will not be able to rebel. The foundation of the gun laws. Under international law on the issue of a people's right to self-determination, it is clear the time a people can really invoke their right to self-determination is also when the state fails. That is in the situation where they are a people. Even when they are not a people, they could secede. If they are a people, they cannot invoke their right to self-determination and separate. So the basis of international law, not in the premise of a domestic practice, is that in the situation where states or governments fail in their responsibility to guarantee the rights and safety of a people, they have a right to exit. So states derive foundational legitimacy through good practices in ensuring the safety and security of its people. So do you think La Republique has foundational legitimacy over Ambazonia? That was the basis, the outcome of 1993 Boya Declaration, where we catalog all of those things in what we call the socio-economic and political grievances that we put forward, that La Republique has failed woefully to guarantee the safety and security of the Ambazonian people. It was also the basis of the submission in Banjul made by Professor Carson Anyangwe in the 2003 submission, an outcome we got in 2006. So do you think La Republique has foundational legitimacy over Amazonia? All other assumptions muted. It doesn't have. It's never guaranteed the safety and security of Amazonian people. It dismantled our economic infrastructures. It dismantled all of our health infrastructures. Right to political association, freedom of speech, everything denied. So why would you allow such a state to have legitimacy to determine rules and policies over you? The other form of legitimacy is what they call contingency legitimacy. Legitimacy you derive time and again through some processes. In some states, or there are kingdoms, contingency legitimacy is derived through, for example, in the United Kingdom. So if the Queen dies and you know that the heir to the throne is King Charles, if you bypass that will and give it to another person, then the kingdom loses legitimacy. In democracies, they've established a certain system of elections where representatives are elected. That's how you derive legitimacy. In fondoms, within the Mancon fondom, there is a way of gaining legitimacy through an established process of hereditary. In the case of La Republique, the contingency legitimacy is organizing this charade it calls elections. And it can now show to the world that it has legitimacy from the Ambazonian people through an electoral process which they've delegated the people they want to govern them. That is what La Republique is looking. It's not looking for people to govern you. It's looking for legitimacy. To use it as a credit score for its right to rule, to use your resources, and to take credit in your name. For the past 6 years, have you granted La Republique any contingency legitimacy over Ambazonia? To use your territory as a credit score? To get credit in your name? To govern Ambazonia? To control your land and your resources? Have you done so? You haven't done so. But like in all situations of occupation, the enemy has recruited from amongst us murderers, sellouts, political, as my PS calls, political shows like John Frundi's. And when you look at John Frundi, don't you feel ashamed? That's a man with his residence that I slept around at his house in 1992. I slept there for around 2 months outside to protect him from being taken to Yaoundé. And Samukum there were cutting down trees to block the road. We went up to T Junction and poured tar on the road for slippery stuff. We dug trenches. When the people give you power, even an army cannot take you to Yaoundé. When the people refuse to give you power, the man escaped. John Frundi, Ambazonian political ashao, a man of vendetta. John Frundi, if you know him personally, he's a man of vendetta. He will do everything to make sure Ambazonia does not exist, just as a justification of his own existence. But we will do everything to make sure Ambazonia exists as a justification of our right to exist. He has used all of these people. They have told Mr. Biya and his cohort that we want to grant you political legitimacy to exploit Ambazonian resources. We don't care if you take all the money and repair the roads in Sangmaleva. We've granted you the permission to take the money made out of those resources to buy more guns and come and burn our villages. We've given you, we'll sit in armored cars, we'll be ferried by helicopters. But the defenders of the land, the defenders of the flag, the defenders of our right to exist, the people of Ambazonia have said no. You can conduct this political charade for as long as you want. It is not going to give you legitimacy, whether foundational contingency over Ambazonia. So when we have put down a strategy to fight Yaoundé, and we talk about delegitimization, it is simply because for a state to demonstrate to the international community that it has legitimacy over your land, it can and it will use political charades like elections to derive that legitimacy. The only connection between La Republique and Ambazonia now, directly, is military occupation. Sparse military occupation. Because it doesn't have enough men to occupy the land. So my fellow people, you must understand these things. So when we say don't take part in their elections, it's not simply because we want to boycott some elections, which we could also decide to boycott. When was the last time your vote has ever really counted? Oh, assume that it has counted sometimes. When has that vote translated in any development, any activities that has benefited you? Why would you stupidly give your vote to your neighbor to be the boss in your own compound, to determine how you use your resources, and that those resources are taken out, nothing ever given back to you? And every time that neighbor comes again and say, hey, Mola, I need more vote so that I can have access to your oil, to your gold mine. You recall that the last 60 years, they've taken that vote and given you nothing. Don't you think it's time to say, no, I wouldn't give you my vote? You can come and take the resources by the use of guns, but I will not consent and make myself a fool. If that's the only power you have, would you deny yourself of the power to tell the enemy, I will not give you that vote? Take it by force. That's what we are saying. So if that's the last power you take away from the enemy and go with it in your grave, you will declare your individual self independent. You can't deny yourself that power, that right over your own autonomy. We will establish by the end of this year in some communities elections to elect our own representatives. We are working on that. My people, La Republique is not coming back. They can roll their tanks on our street. I heard what they call him, Buba, is asking the police and the gendarmes to withdraw from Bamenda. He wants to send in the army. That the police has failed him. Bring the US or Air Force. Bring SEAL Team 6. You will not control Bamenda. You will not. You can kill the men, kill whosoever. We will fight you in that city and in every other city at a time of our choosing, at a place of our choosing. It is our land and you have to live to stay alive. We have nothing to lose. You took away the land. Our right to life you took. The right to speak we don't have. Even to breathe, you've messed up the whole place with trash. To assemble, we cannot. To go to school, we don't. So what is it we have to lose? Nothing. We'll give our life for a good cause. Defending the land of Amazonia. Fellow Amazonians, the Amazonian Governing Council, the Southern Cameroon's National Council, the APLM, the interim government of Comrade Ayuk Tabe, the consortium, we have convened the All-Amazonian Conference that would bring all of us together. People have asked, why have we convened a conference? In 1989, a group of men, 7 of them, met and formed the SDF. They convened Amazonians on the 26th of May to launch that SDF. We all went there and launched it for a good cause. 3 years later, 3 men, Professor Carson Anyangwe, Dr. Simon Munzu, Barrister Ekontang Elat, convened all of us to Boya in AAC 1. Then did the same in 1994 for good causes. We were all there. Between then and 2016, several groups of persons have convened us for good causes. Whether it's teachers, lawyers, for the GCA board, for universities, we've all stood for those good causes. A few years ago, the consortium instituted ghost towns on Mondays. We have all enforced. A few years later, we were convened in Nigeria together. We went, set up SCACUF. You have the governing council. Before what happened, that happened. I don't want to go into that. It led to the emergence of the interim government. Fast forward, the Dr. Sarkozy and others called us to Washington. I was there. A few months ago, you heard about the Canada talks. I wouldn't talk much about it. It will have its day. But if there's ever been any victory for Amazonia, that was one of such victories. And the victory was not about Canada. It was that we were able to come together. These groups were able to come together, work under very difficult circumstances. It was difficult. Tough issues, different positions. We locked ourselves up and we said we will find compromises. We built consensus. We agreed on some things. In the evening, with one person disagreed. We came back the next day. We talked about it. This one said, this is my position. This one said, this is my position. We got the help of the CDN. We got the help of experts. We got the help of other countries through different instruments. And we realize that once there is a mission, it is possible for us to overcome the obstacles. And stemming from that period of working together for the Canada talks, we thought it was important to extend that net to bring in more people for us to talk about these issues. Because what happens tomorrow if La République says, well, we are withdrawing? One day, South Africa just decided that apartheid was coming to an end. One day. They sent an envoy to London. They met Thabo Mbeki and said, well, we think A, B, and C should happen. We just got up one day and La Republique said they wanted to talk. What if we get up one day and La Republique says it's time to leave? So it's important we meet and ask ourselves this one question. If real negotiations will begin, what would be the framework that will be acceptable to all Ambazonians, that will be perceived as inclusive, including the voices of women, the Bayam Selams, the taxi drivers, the prisoners of war, even the dead, the tortured, the mamas? What will be the framework that will capture everybody's aspiration? We think we should establish such a framework. And AAC1 will do that. We are also here talking about there is a defense force there, there is this defense force here. People have asked the question, don't we think Ambazonia will descend into South Sudan? Into kind of a spiral down a dark cave? It may, if we don't prepare. What will happen to all of these guns that we have? What will happen to all of the defense forces that we have? How can we bring them together in such a way that they can be more effective? We think it's important for us to sit down and be aspirational. What about thinking of establishing down the road in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, of the Ambazonian army, where the top generals of all of these defense groups will sit in the central command, still controlling their own units, but being able to make some decisions that trickles down to this central command? How can the different leaders collaborate and tolerate differences? During the Canada discussions, we didn't agree on everything. There were times when different movements had to submit different positions, and all were stitched together as a common position, because the positions were all okay, but probably different in priority and differed in priority and differed in severity. So we adopted that model. Okay, we have all of them put together. There were some, we had to put them in scale of preference. The argument was about which come first. We accommodated everyone. Why is it impossible for all the leaders to talk about a common plan for October 1? A common plan to stop an illegal elections, a common plan for an illegal 11th of February. Why is it difficult that if a group wants to do something and the other group disagrees based on the fact that it's not part of its practice or policy, whether you must not go out there and slander and try to give the enemy a headache? How do we take away the fear of Ambazonians that has given rise to endless blackmail, agitations, distortions? When you hear all of this blackmail, is because of fear. Some are desperate. They feel like they are being left behind. How can we build an inclusive framework on all of these issues for everyone to believe their voice is part of and parcel of what is going on, that they feel listened to? That's why AAC is important. How can we rekindle that sense of nationalism that greeted the uprising a few years ago? How can we tell the international system that we are prepared for our homeland through the little things that we do, we put in place, the vision we sell to our people? How do we emerge from there and telling Ambazonians what Ambazonia will look like once La Republique is gone, on issues of education? Every child going to school free of charge. That if you go to the doctor when you are sick, you don't have to pay a dime. You consult medication, you go to the pharmacy, you get the medication free of charge. And that The generals who fight today, if they want to become military engineers, military pilots, they want to become what in the military, they have a pathway. If they want to even become president, if they want to become prime minister, if they want to become a parliamentarian, they will not be setting something new. There is precedence. How do we make Ambazonians know that everyone has equal opportunity and equal chance? It is based on the promise. It is based on what we present to them. And we think AAC is the platform that is going to lay the foundation to ensure that in the next 1 year, in the next 2 years, there are certain states that La Republique will not get into. Free, completely protected, and begin to practice Ambazonian way of doing business. I can talk for the next 3 hours on the dream, on the optimism, on the vision, on the hope, and you feel it. These things will never exist even in the next 2 million years under foreign occupation, under a people who don't even know you, who think you are les anglophones, les ennemis dans la maison, that your resources are good enough to be looted, and the only thing they give you back is death, desperation, and hopelessness. And they tell you, if you don't want to eat the shit, you can walk through Mexico into the United States, or you can take the next flight to hell. The plane is empty. That's where we will load them in and send them to hell. God bless you all.
Love by love, neighborhood by neighborhood. Love by love, neighborhood by neighborhood. Love by love, love by love. Our liberator, our Moses, the Moses of our time. What was so I have? Love by love, neighborhood by neighborhood. Our will be free. Our will be free. The leader of the people, the leader of the Ambazonian people, of our generation, the leader of our generation, Cho Ayaba, love by love, let